Hi guys, welcome back to another episode here on This Is Just the Beginning. Now we're coming up to 30 episodes, which is just crazy. Because I know that I'm not like that regular with uploading episodes. At the start they were, because I had so many topics to talk about. But now as the years gone by, it's been over a year now since I've released this podcast, and I just use it as my kind of diary, as you guys know, and it's just been crazy to see the growth of it. And yeah, it's just been so fun to do. So I'm glad you're still listening to it, and I'm glad you're here today. It's currently, what's the time? It's currently 9:30 on Thursday night, and as you can probably tell by my voice, and I hate it when people say this on podcasts and YouTube videos and stuff, but I have had tonsillitis this week, but I thought it was a good time, better than any, just to get on and do an episode today, because there's been a lot going on in my life, as you would have heard from my last podcast. And I'm here to update you all on that today and kind of just give you an update on things, but also talking about something, again, very close to my heart. So I do apologise if I have to keep stopping during this episode because my voice is kind of gone and I'm still ill, but we're here today. So in my last episode, I explained how dreams can change, and I know that that's a very scary thing to talk about. And as I said, like, I've been wanting to do university my whole entire life, like almost 10 years now. Oh my god, I'm nearly 20, and that is so scary. And I feel like a couple of you listening to this will be like, wait, you're not even 20 yet. Like, no, like, bro, I'm in second year uni. I'm definitely not old. And the fact that I'm coming up to 20 years old, like, my boyfriend just turned 22, and so did my brother, and they're not. Yeah, so like everyone's getting old, and my friends are turning 21 this year because they're like in my school year, but they're in like September, October, and I'm in July. So like it's a very, very scary time, and yeah, but it's kind of nice having like a July birthday because then I turn like 20 like later than everyone else. I'll turn 50 later than everyone else. It's kind of a good thing because I've got a lot of friends that are like older than me as well, so that is a good thing. But on that note, a lot of people, like including myself, I feel like a lot of us at this age now, like turning 20 in our very early 20s, are thinking, especially if you're at uni or not, you're like, I don't know what I'm doing with my life. And as you told from my last episode, like, I have no idea what I'm doing. All I know is that I'm doing whatever this is right now, I'm doing it for me. So I have decided to temporarily drop out of uni, put my course on hold for the year. That means I'm not going on my like year abroad in September. I was meant to be going to Berlin and then Zaragoza, because I study German and Spanish, but I put that on hold because I need to work on a lot of things right now, and that's why I'm glad I've got my podcast and my blog right now, because that is honestly going to help me so much through this, and I hopefully will support other people who might have gone through similar things to this through this. So if you're one of those people, hi, you're definitely welcome here. This is a safe space to listen and to talk about in the community as well that I have with you guys on my socials and things. But it is a scary life, and sorry, it's a very scary time in our life right now at this age when we have people graduating and people who haven't even gone to uni yet thinking about, okay, I really need to think about my career plan and what I want to do and if I do want to go to uni. And it is very, very scary, and I know. But at our age, between 18 to even 25, like even to 30, we do not need to have a plan. Like, I know, especially at the school that I went to, it was drilled into us that we had to have a plan. And I've talked about this in my last episode, but I'll touch on it again quickly. But you don't have to have a plan yet. Like, my parents have always been a bit like, you need to have a plan, you need to do this. Like, if you drop out, you need to have a plan. And I'm like, no, right now I need to focus on me. I need to focus on myself. And my parents have only just understood that, but they do understand it. They're like, okay, yeah, you've been through a lot the last few years. You do need to have time to get therapy, get support, and just work on yourself, like by yourself as well. And that worked last year. Like, I genuinely improved so much when I did that whole like spiritual journey and just the whole self-improvement thing. But now, like, I need to touch back in on that because I have lost sight of that completely because I've been overwhelmed with exams and stress, and having a boyfriend obviously takes your mind off loads of other things because you just want to be with them all the time, and is time consuming, but in a good way. I'm not saying it's a bad way, like I wouldn't change it for the world, but I have lost touch of myself a little bit, but I'm not complaining about that in that aspect. But in the other aspect, yeah, I am, because it is my fault though. I'm not holding that against myself, definitely not, but it is annoying that I've lost touch of that, because that side of me I love that Ellie side of me where I do yoga, I go for walks, I journal every single day, even twice a day, and I just have not picked up my journal as much at all, and I really hate that. I haven't even read a book. I bought a new self-help book by Vex King. I fucking love his books. Excuse the language, but I do. And I bought a new book by him, his second book, and I just can't read it. I don't know what it is, I just cannot read it. Even Colleen Hoover books, I cannot pick up, and it's just crazy to me, but I'm getting back on it, trust me. But as I was saying, like, these times are changing, they're scary, but we don't have to have a plan, like, just focus on the present day. Like, I know people are stressing about exams and then what they're going to do when they graduate, what are they going to do if they don't get a placement job, because a lot of people who are my age will be on a placement year next year and they can't get a job for that time, and they're like, what do we do? And I'm like, don't stress. Oh my god, like, if you don't get a job, it doesn't matter in the first instance. You've got your whole life to get a job. Just focus on the present moment. And like, I'm not stressed that enough. Like, take a year out, and I'm not saying that is the solution for everyone. Sometimes that can't be the solution, like, I know that. Sometimes you do have to, like, take it under the wing and you do have to find a job. Well, you know what I mean? Like, everyone's in a different situation, but I genuinely believe in just focusing on the present moment. I say that in literally every single one of my episodes, but I'm really holding on to that right now. And as I look for things to do on my year off, I know I need to get a job. Like, I know that. And my parents keep drilling that into me, but they are being very understanding that I need at least the summer to really, like, work on myself and figure out exactly what I want to do. And what I want to do at the moment, but I have been wanting to do this for the past few years, is to get my personal trainer qualification and use that. It's a 12-week course at the most, and use that to then, like, get a job in the gym. And that is quite like a stable job, I think, and not quite like a big girl job. I thought I wanted a big girl job just to get out in the world, but I don't think I do, because that is scary. And as I said, I'm coming up to 20 years old and I'm not ready for that. And mentally as well, I don't think I could handle that right now. And I know that sometimes mental health isn't a huge, like, excuse. And that kind of sounds harsh to say, but everyone our age is dealing with, believe it or not, mental health issues. And I can't always use it as like an excuse for things. And it does kind of sound harsh to say, but you can at the same time, if you know what I mean. Like, you can take time for yourself if you're able to, like, if you're in a position where you can say no to a job. You know what I mean? But if you need to have a job, that is a completely different story. But right now, I am capable of saying, actually, no, I will use my mental health as, like, not an excuse, just as a reason for not doing something. Like, I don't want to put pressure on myself right now, and that's totally fine as well. Like, I don't need to. I'm taking this year out for me, and everyone is totally in support of that. And I literally cannot thank my friends, my family, even my university. Like, Warwick has been, oh my god, amazing with dealing with this, and they've done it so thoroughly, so quickly. And I thought it was going to take a lot more, like, haggling or more talks with senior members at the university, but no, they literally just said, if this is what you want to do, it's okay, you can do it, we can sort this out together. And it's just been, like, so easy to do, and I thought it was going to be something so, like, challenging to do, but we've sorted it out and it's great. And I just wanted that out of my mind, because I didn't want to have this whole burden over me for the next few months. If I'm like, am I going to drop out? Am I not? Like, what am I going to do? And that's what I know for now. I know I'm just putting my degree on hold, and whether I'm going to go back or not, that's up to me to decide, like, this time next year. I think I will. Like, I need to get a degree, I know that. Need in quotation marks, but in my mind, I will find life a lot easier if I just finish that final year and just not do my year abroad and just get my degree. And then I can, it would just be a lot more smooth sailing, and I haven't just, like, thrown away 2 years. But at the same time, you can. And I'm going to stop going back and forth right now because it is very, very annoying. But Yeah, if you're at the age like me, kind of like early 20s, I mean, I'm not 20 yet, but around this age, just starting out life basically, it's okay to not know what you're doing. Like, trust me. I've also realized that there's so many people who think that they're the only ones going through this. And I thought that too. I'd be like, I'm the only one who's ever considered dropping out of uni. Like, absolutely not. I know people who have like dropped out, changed courses, started again, started when they're 24. Like, it's not like the end of the world if you drop out at age like 19, for fuck's sake. It's not that difficult. And like, I know a couple of my friends have considered dropping out. Another one of my good friends has dropped out. And looking to either start work, and he's in the same year as me, or to even just switch to a whole uni completely and start again as a fresher. And that was something on my mind, but I'm like, I've missed the deadlines, I can't do it now, blah blah blah. But that is just excuses. Like, I could go through clearing this if I wanted to do it. There's loads of options, but no, I think at the moment uni isn't the right place for me. But then I think about it and I'm like, but I actually do like uni. But then every time I'm there, I cry. So I just have this love and hate relationship with university so much. Like, I love the independence, but I hate the independence. And yeah, I think with COVID, it definitely like didn't help. Being like not very social, but I've not been a very social, outgoing person my whole life. It's only been the last few years that it's come out, and I was really surprised when I went to uni, like how social I kind of was. Um, but yeah, like I just wasn't social for that long. My social battery ran out, and again, that is fine, like absolutely totally fine. And I've learned that the hard way, I know, but I think COVID, and I hate to blame COVID, everyone blames COVID for everything, but here, like social battery, no one talks about the effect that it's had on us. Like, honestly, it's been so long. Like, we were in lockdown for effectively 2 years. Like, yeah, we had breaks from it, but no, not really. It was a fucking struggle. Like, I'm sorry, I keep swearing on this podcast, but I know I've had a glass of wine, so. But it was a struggle for anyone, especially ages like 14 to 18, like teenage age. It was just really difficult, and I do feel bad for those people who their entire university has been affected by COVID, like the year above me and the year above that. So I think my boyfriend, like, he went to uni and then had to come home from uni in the March. So he missed like exams and everything at the end of the uni year because he had to, like, everything was just shut. And then the next year, again, everything was kind of shut. He couldn't go out, so it was just in the house all the time, at his uni house. And then his third year, he was on placement. Now in his final year, when he can actually have a COVID-free year and a normal year, he's stressed with work, and that's not fair. But you can't change it, and with that comes, okay, this has happened, we're going to move on. And also with that, a lot of people say that university is the best years of your life, and I've heard that a lot, and that might be true, but people say that about high school, and it's definitely not the case with high school. But I can see that it is with uni, because you do find people who are like you, and if you don't, then like you will find them. You know what I mean? Like, you don't just associate with people you don't like, because there's so many, like there's thousands of people at the university that you will like. There's a society for everything. Even if you're not social, you will find your people. Like, it's just, that's just how it is. And I have found my people at uni finally, and it's just been the people who were there all along. But I just didn't thought I got on with them last year because I wasn't social, and I just didn't like make the effort to get to know them. But I'm thankful that they stayed there with me. So if you're listening to this, you know who you are. I'm thankful that like we are friends, because honestly, I would have no one, and no one would have helped me through this last year. So thank you again, for my current, like, I guess you could call them best friends at uni, like my closest friends. Like, they've honestly helped me through so much, and I can never repay them for that, because I know that they've been going through a lot as well at the same time. And sorry, I'm going on a lot of different tangents right now, but I'm going to go on another one. But with that in mind, I always feel bad when I kind of realize, and it is usually quite soon on, but when I realize that I've been kind of offloading on other people, and forgetting that they have their own problems too. And this happened recently with my closest friend at uni, and I've been going on about all my problems, and I say all my problems, they're all like first world problems, but every problem is valid. We've had this conversation before. Validate your feelings. And again, this is in the same context, but and I kind of just forgot how to ask how she was. Like, of course, I'd be like, "Oh, how are you?" But I'd never really like asked deeply, like, "Actually, how are you?" Because I kind of suspected she was going through stuff, but then I just never really asked like properly, like, "Are you okay?" And then I felt really, really bad about that. And then she was like, "No, no, no, don't feel bad. Honestly, I just don't open up as much as you do." And then I felt so happy that someone was so honest to say like, "Yeah, Ellie, like some people are really open, some people aren't, and you're lucky like if someone like me that opens up to you." And I'm like, "Okay, thank you for being honest with that." And that is so true. Like I am an absolute blabbermouth. I will speak to anyone about my problems. I'm definitely in those TV shows, you know, when you're sitting at a bar and you see someone come in and they just sit down next to you and then just absolutely blurt out everything they're feeling and why they're in the bar. Like that is so me. That is what I would do. Honestly, if I've had a bad day, I'll literally tell anyone next to me why I've had a bad day. That's how I process my emotions. And a lot of people process them differently. A lot of people hide them away. And I don't know which is better or worse. Like, there's no one way to deal with emotions, but I always find talking about them is so much easier because then you admit it to yourself as well as the people around you. And as hard as that is the best way. I personally think it might not work for everyone, but as soon as you tell one person, it's like this weight is lifted off your shoulders. But that's where the problem with downloading onto someone comes in. Like, I didn't realize all my life it's been such a problem for my sister, for example. I've always been kind of the one in the family with like the problems and just always like going through shit, I guess you could say. And I never really realized how much effect that had on her when she was also going through stuff, but had to act like the big sister, even though we're twin sisters. But she is still the big sister, and I never have actually thanked her for just always like being there for me, I guess. So if you are listening, I mean, I don't think you are listening, but thank you for that. But just having someone who is always there for you no matter what is so nice. But then you also have to realize that if they're constantly dealing with your shit, they have shit too. And it is a really, really hard like situation to be in when you want to speak to your best friend. For example, if there's two of you and you have so much shit going on right now, and you might think you're the only one with shit going on, you've still got to remember that they have shit going on too. Like everyone has shit going on throughout their entire life. Like every day there is something going on in your mind, okay? In my opinion, I mean, that's just me speaking as still a teenager. Like there's always shit going on in my brain. Like some people might have it easy, but I strongly believe that everyone's got something going on in their brain, whether it's about their job, about a relationship, about their kids, about money. You know, there's always little niggles, or maybe they just have insecurities. You know, like there's always something going on in your mind. And I guess a lot of people just don't remember that. And I forget it easily too, and it's just something to keep in mind when you are constantly offloading onto other people. Maybe not the same person, but different people. Like they have to deal with that as well as their own stuff. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't speak to people about your problems, and it definitely doesn't mean that you can only speak to like a therapist. I'm not saying that at all because I feel like some people could take it that way, but um, just what I'm saying is like just be mindful of like how much you are offloading, because with me it does help just to like blur, which is why my podcast and my blog is just such a good tool, because then I'm still, especially with my podcast, I'm still like talking it out loud. um Obviously I'm not giving as much detail as I would to like my sister, for example, or my best friend, but anyway, I'm speaking it out loud and then that gets it off my chest. That is a good way. Like, this is totally weird, but before I go to sleep at night, I might sometimes like talk my problem out loud. You know, when you're trying to go to sleep and you've got all of these things running around your mind, like I might literally talk out loud to myself, going, "Okay, Ellie, how can we deal with this?" And I do that quite a lot. And yeah, that might sound weird, but it does help just to speak out loud to yourself as though you're speaking like to someone else. And that comes naturally to me because I have a podcast and I'm that kind of person, but it definitely helps. And I don't know, it's just to keep in mind that everyone's going through shit as well. and you're not the only one. But that doesn't mean your feelings are invalidated, because that is also something that I struggle with a lot. A lot of the time when people say like, "Oh, but people have it worse than you," that annoys me so much now, because I'm like, yeah, they might do, but right now this is the lowest I've ever felt. Or I feel really, really sad right now. I'm allowed to feel that. And you are allowed to feel anything you're feeling right now, any time of the day, any day of the year. You are allowed to feel like shit. You're allowed to feel happy. You're allowed to feel confused. You're allowed to feel anything you want to feel. Like, that is totally okay. Even if like nothing completely bad has happened, you're still allowed to feel sad. Okay, that's why I think people with depression, diagnosed or undiagnosed, or who are experiencing a really low mood, for example, like, I feel like that's when they get kind of angry about it. I want to say, like, I haven't experienced it to that extent, but I've experienced low moods a lot, and I do experience seasonal depression. I don't like the word depression. I have a problem with that, but I'm just going to use it right now. But because they don't know what's wrong, and then that makes them feel like there isn't a problem when there still is. And you are allowed to feel those emotions. And I'm going off on a huge tangent about this just because it's so important that we recognize this, that you are allowed to feel. And just because like someone has it worse than you, like because maybe they're someone close to them has died that day in school, and you come in and you're like, I've had the worst day, like XYZ has happened to me today, I'm just having the worst day. And yeah, that might sound like first world problems. And then someone else chimes in like, oh yeah, well, so and so died today. Like, that annoys me so much, because yeah, okay, if you're that person who's just lost someone really dear to them, I understand both sides, because you're like, really, you're moaning that like your package didn't come, or you know what I mean, like you're moaning about the smallest things, but that might just absolutely tick them off. You know, like, I mean, I think that's a really bad example to give, but that's just kind of showing that every feeling is valid. Because I have a problem with like, especially when it comes to, and I'm going to get onto this topic in a bit, but especially with eating disorders, I sometimes like look back and I'm like, why did I ever like what's the word, voluntarily starve myself? And I just look back and think, Ellie, that is so silly. And then, because I think some people literally don't eat because they can't eat, they can't afford to eat, or there is no food. And I sometimes like tell myself that, and then I think, no, okay, Ellie, you live in like this bubble. Like, okay, we live in a European bubble, yeah. I know that. I completely know that. And I still live in a bubble inside that. I know that. But even if it might be classed as a first world problem, and it is classed as a first world problem, that eating disorders and all that, it's still a really bad condition. And I cannot invalidate something that formed a huge part of my life and who I am today. Without me going through an eating disorder, I would not be the person I am today. It's made me so strong. It's made me so powerful, independent. Doing this podcast, I don't think I would have done it if I didn't have an eating disorder, to be honest with you. And saying that out loud is just like, wow, like so many things have come from me having an eating disorder, good and bad, but a lot of good. And I don't know, like, it's just something to keep myself accountable for, I guess. I'm not saying like get an eating disorder, good things will happen. Absolutely not. Do not take that the wrong way. But I don't know, like whenever those thoughts come into my mind, like, yo, people like literally cannot afford to eat. And I get really sad about it, and I'm like, oh my god, Ellie, you were so stupid for starving yourself on purpose. Like, I'm allowed. I'm not allowed. I don't know how to say it, but like, it's still valid for me to do that in a way, because that was my way of dealing with my emotion, and that was my way of dealing with how to stay in control. And I cannot invalidate that. If you know what I'm saying, this is another example, and it might throw some shade on some areas. And yeah, it might cause some controversy, but that is how I feel. Like, I know that there are people who have it worse than me, and there's people that have it better than me, but right now, this is how I'm feeling on X day at X time. Like, I'm feeling like this, I'm allowed to feel like this. If someone comes along and be like, well, so and so has it worse than you, that is the worst thing anyone could ever say, because you're like, well, right now this is the lowest I've ever felt, and I feel pretty low. They're like, oh, why? And I'm like, you just don't want to say, like, you know what I mean? It's no one's business to like compare your struggles with someone else, because at the end of the day, they're your own struggles. That is only what you've experienced, and you know what's your lowest and what's your highest. You know what I mean? Like, no one else can tell that for you, and no one else can say that your lowest is not low enough. And I've been told that before. I've had that day where I've had a horrendous day at school with my eating disorder, and someone's come along and been like, well, my nan died today. That was a scenario I have that I used earlier and that I have experienced. And I'm like, are you serious right now? Like, yeah, that's awful for you. And then that was when I was in my mind, like, of course I never thought like, oh yeah, this is just a first world problem, Ellie, get over it. No, because that was the worst thing going on in my life. And that is the worst thing that's ever happened in my life, probably. And it just really like invalidated that feeling. And I was like, well, is there anything wrong? And you know what I mean? Like, that is what is so wrong with things like eating disorders and mental health conditions, because, and this is still Mental Health Awareness Week, so this is why it's so apt to talk about this right now. Like, you cannot pitch your feelings against other people's feelings. And I'm going to keep saying it over and over again for the remainder of this fucking episode, because it is so important that we learn that. And it's important that we teach younger people this, well, people this at a very young age, in like preschool, because if you're not in touch with yourself and your own feelings, you cannot help other people. And I don't know, I'm getting like really like uptight about this, because it is a topic that is a huge passion of mine, that we shouldn't let other people like control how we're feeling. Because a lot of the time, when you ask someone like, should I make this a big thing, like if something's gone on, like in a relationship or something, they're like, oh no, don't worry about it, or anything kind of like that, if you've heard that before. And then if someone says that to you, you're a bit like, oh, but I think I should. They're like, no, that's nothing. And then you feel a bit like, oh, I'm just being stupid. No. If you're feeling a certain way, you are allowed to feel like that. Stand up for yourself and be like, okay, I'm feeling like this. And that's totally fine to feel a certain way about a certain thing. That's how you react to it. And you can learn those patterns. You can learn how you react with certain things. And then you can like become more aware of them. And that's what I've been trying to work on recently, how I react to certain situations. If I relapse, for example, I know how I relapse, when I relapse, and why I relapse. And that knowledge alone is the most powerful tool I literally have in my mind. Because if I didn't have like the skills to prevent a relapse, or to reel in a relapse, because preventing it is a lot harder than taming it back, in my opinion. And I'm going to say something that is probably very controversial. I've said that word a couple of times now, but very, I don't know, people might say a lot of shit about this, but I know that I am strong enough now in where I am with recovery, and especially where I am in my mindset, because recovery for me was about my mind, not my body, which is what I got wrong so many times in the past. It's about fixing my relationship with myself before my relationship with food and my body, and it worked so much better. Oh my god, I tell you. But I know that I am so confident in the work that I've put in with myself, that if I did relapse, so there are days where, and my eating disorder kind of came around from lack of control, because of exams, because of the pandemic was a huge influence, because I was bored and all I did was exercise. And then when I went back to school, I couldn't do that all day, every day. And I got very panicky, and then things got out of control. Again, when you think that you can control something and then it gets out of control, it's just this whole spiral and this whole cycle that is just not good. And I latched onto that. But I know now that I know the triggers for it, and I do relapse, okay? Not very often, but I know when I do, I can kind of sense it coming, like when everything's going out of control. And believe it or not, it's not when I'm having like a mental breakdown to do with like anxiety, because my anxiety is really bad since my eating disorder, and it's just got worse ever since. It's been okay recently, but I have more of those breakdowns now, which is something very new that I'm trying to deal with, because I've always been like down or sad or having breakdowns about my eating disorder, about my eating, my exercise, all of that. And it's very new to me that I've got new emotions, especially that like I'm in a relationship, so there's more emotions there, and there's more emotions with I can be sad about anything else now, and that's really scary. And when I first had a breakdown like in January about something that wasn't to do with my eating, it was to do with university, I was like, oh my god, like what is happening? And I was on the pill, and I'm still on the pill, and that is something very difficult to manage, let me tell you. And I want to do a whole episode about being on the pill and how it affects you. But so basically, I just have a lot of emotions going on, and most of the time, like I don't relapse to do with like losing control. I don't really know. I say that I'm so in touch with myself, but I'm like, yeah, I relapse, and that's when something goes wrong in the day. And I feel like I'm quite OCD like with my day and planning it, and I get very anxious when someone pulls out of a plan or something goes wrong, especially if it was like going out for dinner and I'm like, okay, I'm not going to eat now, I'm going to go do a workout. And I just kind of, it's when I get angry, I think more than anything I take it out on my eating. And that's kind of what happened over lockdown. Like 5 of us as a family in a house for months on end with nowhere to go. Like you can see how bad it got, right? And so then my anger on my family, I took out on that, and blah 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 blah. Like that all triggered it. So that's my kind of big trigger. And it sounds toxic. I'm getting back to the point now, but it sounds toxic. But I just go, okay, Ellie, I am going to let you relapse, in quotation marks, like have a bad day for a day. Usually it lasts for, usually it happens at night, so it might last a night or half a day. Like usually it does not last longer than a day. Sometimes it lasts a couple days. But I say to myself, Ellie, I'm gonna like allow you, I'm gonna give you permission. And this whole permission thing again, I'll come back to like in another episode, but you are allowed to have a day off. You're allowed to have a bad day, okay? This isn't going to change anything because you are confident that you will pull yourself back out of it. So it's fine. Like right now, what you're feeling, you don't want to uncover, you don't want to talk about, you don't want to journal about, you don't want to admit what you're feeling. So yeah, okay, take it out on like yourself. And I know that is so toxic for anyone to hear, and I hate admitting it out loud, but to me, that is my way of like dealing with it. And I'm sorry, I should have said trigger warning here, but that might trigger a lot of people about that. But I'm just being raw and honest here. Like, that is literally how I deal with it, and that is really bad. Like, okay, I'm not saying I do that every time. A lot of the time, I say, and you just like snap out of it, you're better than this now. And if I said that to myself, like, even this time last year, I would have like screamed at myself because I was still in two different minds. Like my brain was split into two different people. It was a really scary time. Like it was just like I didn't know who I was. I was so dissociated from myself that this ED was literally just controlling me. And my old self was trying to chime in and it just wouldn't do anything. So I was just like screaming at myself basically all the time. But now I'm so in control of myself. And like I know who I am basically, and even though I'm like, oh my god, I'm dropping out of uni, I don't know who I am. No, I know who I am, like on a spiritual internal level, but on terms of like where I am in the world, all of that, of course I don't fucking know. I'm 20 years old basically, and I don't know what I'm doing with my life, but that is not like who I am on the inside, you know what I mean? But most of the time I am like, okay, Ellie, like you know you love food, like come on, like you've recovered, you put all this work in, don't relapse now. And I've never done a big relapse. I did relapse in the summer, but that was very very new into recovery. Like since then I've not relapsed just because I know that I love my routine so much. I love also not having a routine, I love eating, and you know what I mean. It's like a relapse, like a day's relapse would literally harm me in no way, just because I know that I have to be gentle with myself, and sometimes I'm going through something. It might be really small, but at the time I'm like, I don't want to deal with this right now. I'm just going to deal with it in a really unhealthy way, and it's so bloody unhealthy. And I am going to stop going on about it because I know how toxic this might sound, but that's just my way of like dealing with it, and it does work because then usually this happens kind of like at nighttime. And I'm like, Ellie, yeah, tomorrow just have like the day of like the treadmill. Go for it, hun. I wake up the next morning and I'm like, oh my god, Ellie, what the hell was that? And usually that is my hormones. Usually that is the pill talking. Like, that is a whole other side of me right now. Like, that is the other brain I'm talking about. I am in two different minds again, I guess, but when I have a breakdown now, I kind of have to check in with myself and go, is this you talking or is it the hormones talking? And yeah, I'm not going to get into the whole pill side. I want to do a whole episode on that. But yeah, that is my kind of experience at the moment with my eating disorder, kind of considering relapse, but I've never considered a full relapse. Like, I have, like, I don't really know how to, like, describe it, but I have looked back on old pictures of myself and been like, wow, like, I love my arms there. They're so toned, and wow, I had a six-pack. Like, wow. And I'm like, oh my god, Ellie, what are you doing? Like, just look at yourself now. So then every time I catch myself doing that, I look in the mirror, and this might be when I'm having a bad body image day, right? We all get them. But I look at myself in the mirror and I go, look at your body. You're curvy, you have boobs, you have a great figure now because you have put that work in to gain weight, to recover, to gain your life back. And I have gained my life back. I would not be sitting here right now. Like, emphasis on the sitting. I did not let myself sit down, I tell you. I slept for like 7 hours at the most a night because I was scared of like lying down or sitting down. I was standing up all the time, moving all the time, and I would not be recording a podcast for you if I didn't recover. And it's just so sad to think about that. Because I still think the first couple podcasts I did, I was doing them standing up with my microphone. And that is just awful because to record a podcast, I need to be sat. I'm in my bed right now. I need to be sat bundled up with my teddy next to me. I've got my duck next to me right now. And you know what I mean? Like, that is just so crazy to think about. And I just snapped myself out of it so quickly. And it's just, on like a more positive note now, it's just so crazy to see the progress that I have made with a year in recovery. And when I first like heard that recovery would take 6 to 18 months or something, I was like, it's not worth putting that much work in. I'm not here for recovery. I'll just tootle along, kind of doing like pseudo recovery right now. I'm fine doing that. Ellie, no, you weren't. And I'm so glad I made the jump. And it did. I always say that it just started with finding the connection with myself again. Nothing to do with food and exercise and actual like recovery. It was more just find who I am again, find what I like, and just get back in touch with myself. And then everything can build from that. Like, go back to the absolutely core foundation, and everything will kind of just, I don't mean just sort itself out, no. But then you can work on bits, bit by bit. And yeah, and that's what I did, and it did work so smoothly with me. And again, different people, different needs, but that is how I recovered. And I was also just thrown into it in the summer. I was thrown into travel, obviously everything that I wanted to do, but I traveled, went on holiday, I worked, I did all these amazing things. I didn't have time to think about food. I was just trying to enjoy my summer as best as I could because I wanted to make memories. I wanted to change my life around, and I did. And that would not have been possible without, one, the support I had, which was phenomenal. And two, at the same time, people not keep going on about it. Like, my dad made one comment I remember when we were sat in a bar in Madrid, and in Spain, like in a bar, they, especially in Madrid, they just come out with just a tapa, which is a singular tapas, just like a little dish, like just like one little thing. It might be like an empanada, like a mini one, or some like prawns or something, like, you know what I mean, just like a little tiny dish, just a bar snack, but a really fucking nice bar snack. And we'd been out eating all day, and then I was like, "Ooh, that looks nice." So I had it, and then he was like, "Just to think, like a few months ago, you wouldn't have even touched that. You wouldn't even be here drinking a beer, like in Spain." And he just made one comment, and my dad like never made comments on it because he knew how sensitive I was, and just as a dad, he just didn't really know how to approach it. But I thanked my dad throughout that because anything he would say would always be helpful. Like, he'd always be like, well, you know what my answer is going to be to that. Or if I was like, can you take me to the gym? Because I couldn't drive back then. He was like, well, you know what my answer is going to be? You need to eat first, or you really done a workout today, or whatever. And he'd just be so on it. So I have him to thank for that. But again, recovery would not have been possible without me like wanting to do it, because for so long I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to gain weight, but I was like, you know what? Weight gain is the bottom of my priorities. Like, I don't care about it. Obviously, everyone else around me was like, no, Ellie, that has to be your priority. But I was like, no, my relationship with myself and the idea of gaining life back is my priority right now. I want to make memories. I want to have fun. I don't want to be stuck in my room forever doing workouts, basically. The reason why I've gone on a whole topic discussion about eating disorders right now, because I haven't talked about it properly in a long time, but I've just realized it has been a full year since I've chosen recovery. Like, I did start properly in May last year, kind of the end of April, May, and I've just only realized that. And it made me tear up earlier. I was like, the absolute progress I've made is insane. Like, there's been some days where I'm like, I want my old body back, blah, blah, blah. But I'm like, I would not get back to that body in like months if I even tried, even if I did it the same way I did. And there's no way I'd even go back to that. So it's just this whole like cycle, and I'm like, oh my god, Ellie, you're so much happier right now. And obviously that is a loose way of putting it, like happier in terms of my body and in general, but there are other things obviously tie me down, as everyone is, but that is just not like a huge deal right now, and that is just so lovely to think about. I don't need to think about it ever again, hopefully. And it is very optimistic because, you know, you're not cured. It's not something that you can cure, and it can always come back, like, you know what I mean? It's not like it's forever gone. Like a healed bone, like your bone can break again, you know? That's a really bad analogy to use, but and I don't know, like that is just kind of my thoughts on it recently. Like, I've progressed so much that I would never go back. And yeah, I think I'm gonna tie this episode here. It's been a very wild episode, I tell you. I've delved into a lot of deep things. But I hope you got something from it, and I am just gonna apologize about the segment that I was talking about earlier about my toxic ways of dealing with eating disorders, but that is just to show that I have come so far that I'm strong enough to know that one day isn't going to do anything. Like, I'm not going to, like, revert back to my old ways. Like, if I did that this time last year, yeah, easily, but I was just so convinced that I wanted to make a better relationship with myself more than anything. And it wasn't even about food, it was just literally about myself, and that was just so powerful, and I'm so happy I did that. But yeah, I've got no plans for the summer right now. All I know is that hopefully I'm going to work on the same summer camp I worked on last year for a few weeks, just to get some cash to pay for my personal trainer course, because I really want to do that, but it is quite expensive, so I need to make some money before I do that. So that is on my mind right now. I mean, I've got exams right now. I'd finish like in a month, so I'm very excited about that. And I've got exams next week, and I've been so stressed this week because I've been ill, and I've literally on Tuesday I did not get out of bed, and I've never done that before. Like, I tell you, like, even if I'm hungover, like violently hungover, I still get up and I still go for a walk, or I still do something. Even if it's just a walk to the sofa, to be honest. But even as a kid, when I was ill, I'd walk downstairs with my duvet and sit on the sofa. I just did not get out of bed, and I've never done that. I didn't get up till midday, and I was to go downstairs to try and have this tiny piece of toast, and I came straight back up to bed because I was like, I need to eat something. And yeah, but I've never been like that, and it's been crazy. But I've been so ill this week, but I'm so glad I feel better. But yeah, and I tell you what, I'm gonna have a lovely weekend. Like, I don't know what's planned. Like, I've got nothing planned for the next like year, so I'm gonna take it in my swing. And as I said in my last blog post, like this summer, I have no expectations, because I have expectations that this summer's gonna be just as good as the last summer, but my last summer was the best summer I've ever had, so I cannot expect it to be as good. It might be really boring sitting at home, which I do think it might be, because I don't want to spend all my money traveling or doing stuff, you know what I mean? But I think it's going to be a good summer either way, because I'll be at home with my family. So I hope you have a good weekend and a good few weeks until you hear from me next. Thank you for listening. Share this episode and my blog, my podcast on your socials, and my socials will be linked below. So thanks for listening, and bye.